Hey friends.
Hi,
Colin, Jared, and Hog, how's it going?
it's going.
Great. How
It's
are you?
going pretty good. Excited to talk to you guys today about air. Talk about air. That's very I don't know, talking about air signs, that just feels on point. I forgot to turn
Totally.
my heater off. One sec.
Speaking of
Okay.
air,
Yeah, exactly. Hot air. Yeah, so I guess to get started, I want to introduce all three of you, our air sign representatives, and we'll talk a little bit about how we know each other, and then we'll get into it. So let's start with you, Colin. Do you want to share your SMR, maybe
sure.
where you're from, where you're located, a little bit about your practice?
You got it. So SMR, I am a Gemini Sun, Capricorn Moon, Leo Rising. I am from Long Island, New York, but I'm coming at you from Rome, Italy, 6 hours in the future, which is pazzi, crazy. A little bit about my practice is I am trying as best as I can to just talk about astrology in a way that helps other people correlate to personal insight, relational intelligence. I love the connections between what metaphysicians and esoteric researchers like us are trying to ask and question, but also things that are really rooted in evidence-based research and qualitative and quantitative literature in psychology and relational sciences. I love bringing those worlds together. So that's really the what animates my work is how can we bring the secular and spiritual approaches together. And Kira, we met at like a fun little astrology panel, or like what was it? It was like a free for all basically, but there was a bunch of different like lectures, right? Didn't we meet
Yeah,
there?
it was a New York City astrology meetup,
Yes, the
organized,
meetups.
yeah, that, and we each did, it was you, me, and like one or two other astrologers, and we did presentations on like the outer planets, I think.
Correct.
So I did
That's right.
Uranus and you did Neptune, right?
Oh, such good memory, most assuredly. Yeah, exactly. And I met you just by the doors the first time, and then I just have adored you ever since. You just like radiated with that Aries moon fire.
Oh.
You warmed up the winter, and I was like, all right, that's the one. That's the Scorpio. Boom.
Yes, no, yeah, that was, I remember being extremely like self-conscious that day during that thing, and I
Mm.
remember just being like, I just not killed it, but the opposite of killed it. I just did a bad
No,
job. I thought I did such a bad job.
no, not at all. It was the energy in those spaces. I'm sure everybody can confirm. It can feel so loaded, like it's a pressure cooker, and like,
Yeah.
so you just black out, and you're like, I don't care what the fuck I said or did. Your bitches are gonna eat it up, and I don't care. Goodbye.
Yeah, and that
So
was like back during in-person meetups and stuff like that too. So I
yes,
mean,
different
the
world.
takeaway was it was great to meet you there. And then yeah,
Likewise.
we just stayed connected.
That's right.
Just, and
That's
oh yeah, you
right.
started coming to some of the dinners
Yeah,
uh that I used to host in New York. And
that's
yeah,
right.
we've been connected I refer to you as my Astro Big Brother
I know.
because
What an honor. Seriously. I'm doing the gay gasp and like the holding of the heart. That means so much to me. And you are my Scorpio sister, my Scorpio little sister.
oh
But like, I have much to learn from you. There's no
no.
differential here, you know? But thank you.
Yeah, no, you've helped me out quite a bit just on my
No,
journey, and
of course.
recommended me for the book project that we both worked on.
Right.
You wrote the Gemini book, of course. I wrote the Pisces book for this Barnes and Noble's series that they
That's right.
produced. And yeah, just always having my back. So thank you.
Forever. Gemini Scorpio loyalty.
Hell yeah. Jared, hi.
Hi,
Do you want to share about your SMR and your practice?
for sure. So I'm a Libra Sun, Libra Moon, Virgo Rising. And as for my practice, I don't know if I have too many brilliant things to say. If uh, You might have seen me online as, I mean, which is to say, I'm known exclusively as Mercurius George in the astrology world. Maybe a few people know my name, but I tend to keep that to myself. And I've been kind of hanging around for a while. I feel like I've weaseled my way into the astrology community without really doing anything, which is my pride and joy. But I do consultations. I think by the time this episode goes live, I will probably have relaunched my consultations. And thanks to Kira, I've been contributing as a writer and editor to the Cusp app, which has been a really fun project. And otherwise, honestly, mostly I just love to lurk, make jokes, and keep learning. I feel like I'm still in the learning process as an astrologer as much as I am a practitioner. So really happy to be here with all of you.
Yay. Yeah. How did we meet?
I think just Twitter. I just at some point I got so tired of holding all my thoughts to myself that I created a Twitter account just to talk about astrology. And
Awesome. Okay.
I just started talking to people and with no expectations whatsoever that I was going to someday identify as an astrologer. It just sort of took on a life of its own. And so there's a lot of people I now know, and I can't really remember like why I know them, except just like an accumulation of interactions till eventually it was like, hey, should we meet? So, yeah.
Yeah. It's been such a pleasure over the past, I guess, like 2 years at this point, hanging out online, and we've hung out in person a couple times,
Yeah.
here in LA and New York. And yeah, I'm so happy to have you as part of our Cusp team, saving my life by taking over editing. And you also did, you wrote a lot for our compatibility reports too. So
Putting those Virgo
yes,
placements to work. They're
yes,
always there. You
yes,
might as well use them, right?
exactly. Yeah. So good. So good for me. Awesome. Thanks for being here. And Hawk, hey.
I'm Hawk, and this is Lucian.
So cute.
elected to join us.
Oh yeah, if you're listening and not watching, there's the cutest tuxedo cat on screen right now.
My sun, moon, rising, I am an Aquarius sun, Leo moon, and Sagittarius rising at the 3rd, 9th house sun moon opposition.
Full moon baby. We have a new moon baby and a full moon baby.
A little about my practice. I am a magician, an astrologer. I am on the occultist to astrologer pipeline. So I got pulled from ceremonial magic into full-time traditional astrology. And now I'm like unifying both of those. I have like a devotional deity practice, which means that I worship God forms. And that's like my main way of interfacing with divinity. And my goal as an astrologer is like helping other people learn how to do that and to just connect their like unique self with deity and whomstever. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, if you have 3rd and 9th house placements, or maybe you are just really into worship, ritual, anything having to do with gods and deities, Hawk is a great astrologer to hit up. Or if you're interested in that,
placements,
if you're interested in connecting more, Hawk's great for that. And we know each other through Twitter too.
Yeah, we went to Twitter together.
2018. We met at NORWAC 2019. I'll never forget that. You were like, hey, I'm Hawk. I don't know if you recognize me from Twitter. And I was like, of course I do. And I remember like scooping you up to hug you, and probably like in my head thinking, Kira, you really need to ask people before you hug them.
Now you've probably learned to do that.
I was so surprised too, because I thought you were so cool from a distance. I was just like,
not so cool close up though.
Even cooler close up.
Yeah, that was fun. And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
Cool. And do you guys all know each other? I feel like Hawk and Jarrett, you probably crossed Twitter paths before.
Definitely.
Yeah. But you guys have the mutual friend in Zach Powell.
Well, yeah, so true.
And yeah, Colin too. You're friends with Zach too.
Yeah, Zach was my NORWAC 2020 like room monitor, room captain, room helper. Yeah, so that's where I met Zach. Oh, yeah, but no, I haven't met Jared or Hawk until today. So lovely.
Nice.
So-
airy connections. Yes.
Zach is here in
Yes.
spirit then.
Zach's definitely
Absolutely.
here in spirit. Hey Zach, we know you're going to be listening at some point.
Zach.
another Aquarius.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Gemini rising too.
Yeah, Gemini rising. I'm surrounded by air, and I love it.
Literally surrounded by air at all times.
Literally.
At all
Good
times.
point.
Inside
Good
even.
point. Yeah, right.
Gosh, let's not talk about gassiness right now. Is that what you mean by inside too?
That's where my mind went, but I don't know if that was what
We're eating a lot of
Lungs,
Indian
but
food.
Definitely
And
meant
also,
breathing. I
I
can see how that happened.
I went somewhere else that's not safe for this podcast, so I'm just gonna stop
Hey,
right
this
now.
podcast is already listed as explicit, so whatever
Okay,
you want to
okay.
say.
But I'm not gonna blow up a Scorpio's privacy. Never.
Oh, okay. I know what you mean now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Colin's referring to the fact that I can't get enough Gemini in and around me.
I love it. I will admit I love to just like push the envelope with Aries moons.
Yeah,
like,
you Gemini.
how far can I go? Like, what can I fucking say before they blow a gasket? You know what I'm saying? So let me stop.
Yeah, I mean, let's get started. Let's talk about air.
Let's do it.
Yeah, to start, I just wanted to sort of paint a picture of the element in general before we get into the individual signs. So air, like what comes up? What sort of associations spring into your mind when you think air? Hawk, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think about the intellect and it's funny because we normally, I feel like in like Western quote unquote culture, we're taught that the airy part of our consciousness is basically it, right? Like the emotions, the body, like all of that stuff is removed and it's sort of considered like another thing entirely. And then there's the real you, quote unquote, right? Which is like the part of you that thinks in language. And I think that part is air. And in a more rarefied sense, it's also like gnosis, right? The like sudden understanding, like clarity, that kind of stuff. When something just like refined, like full thought just like shows up and you're like, oh, like the aha moment, like that's air. Yeah, communication, right? The way that two units that are thinking these thoughts can communicate between each other. It's the medium through which language travels, right? Here I am making little sound waves, wiggle into my mic. Yeah, seems like a start.
Yeah, that's a place where I tend to start is like air is what connects us. It's what connects all of us. It's literally like that thing, that substance in between everything and all that is, at least in the physical realm. And then it's how, like you said, it's how sound travels. And yeah, it connects us in that way too. From this language, so many hands, from this language perspective as well. Colin, how about you? What comes to mind with air?
The first word that I thought of, because I was just talking to an Aquarius before we started talking, was levity. I really appreciate how air can introduce just a quality of like, oh my God, don't take yourself so seriously.
So
just
true.
lighten up, right? And I was reading a book about the trickster archetype, like the kind of like Mercury Hermes energy. And what I was learning was that in traditional indigenous any sort of ritual or routine that was emerging in particular civilizations, the community could not pray or have a serious conversation unless the jester, the trickster, or the comedian started, because they believed you could not pray unless you laughed.
What's that book, out of curiosity?
The trickster archetype. I know the first name is John. I will find out and get right back to you. I learned it through the Myth
Emerald?
Blast. The Emeralds? No, it's like the trickster. I'm gonna get it, but I just thought that was like absolutely magnificent. Of just like we can't have serious conversations or engage in spiritual activity unless we laugh first. And I just love that idea. So I connect deeply to air when I'm laughing.
Yeah,
So
laughter is a
what I
good
am.
one.
the
Right?
flow
Yeah.
energy too.
And that like fills you with air too, like fills you with
True,
bubbles
true, true, true,
almost.
true, 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 true.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah. The levity piece is huge. Like when you think air, you think of the fact that it rests above the surface.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
air rises, right? So we are in this sort of, you could say masculine, you could say diurnal element of like being lifted. Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to the earth and water who sink, who have density to them, gravity to them, or at least
Mm-hmm.
gravity affects them in a different way.
Mm.
Jared, how about you?
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm just listening and learning, first of all, but which is a very air thing to do, I suppose. So I'm thinking about how there's a sense of like flexibility with air, and I try to when I'm thinking about astrology, I try to distinguish it from mutability, right? And I think it's rather than like adapting, it's more of an ability to traverse.
Mm.
Air is sort of all around us all the time. I think it's interesting that air is invisible. That probably has something to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then maybe it's my Virgo, but I like to break things down and just remember, like, we're talking about astrology, we're talking about the element of air. We're essentially just talking about these three signs. It's these three signs which have a trine relationship, and that is at the most basic level, that is what air signs are, right? That is what the
Mm-hmm.
element of air is.
Mhm.
Um, you know,
Yeah, yeah. And that makes me kind of think about the triplicity rulers of the air element. Um, Saturn, Mercury. Why am I
yeah,
doing that? Saturn,
You
Mercury, and
got it.
Jupiter, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Saturn, I'm like looking at my table up there. Um, and yeah, when I think about at least Saturn and Jupiter, especially Mercury, I can talk about in a second, but Saturn and Jupiter and Saturn, I like to keep things in order,
Smart.
they have this, they're far away is one thing I want to talk about. The fact that these two planets are so far away, and have so much to do with distance and perspective, which I think is a big thing with air, being able to, like you said, levity, being able to lift up and see things from this bird's eye view, or this perspective that isn't so in the weeds, in the muck of it, not so getting your hands dirty. It's like, let's lift up and view this from, a greater perspective, being able to not get so, not just be so down and dirty with it, I guess. And so that is something that I really associate with air. And then Mercury too, obviously way closer to us, to Earth, than Jupiter and Saturn. But Mercury, similar to what Jarrett was saying, like has this ability to traverse,
Mm-hmm.
and move in between different realms in a way that no other planet / deity is able to. So yeah, again, this ability to sort of like Mercury especially is able to kind of get in and get out, and get in and get out, be able to like experience things on a more physical level, and then pull out and look at things on a more, invisible, intangible level as well. Hawk, did you have something to say about that?
I think that's just so cool because it's like Jupiter and Saturn are the traditional planets who are furthest from the sun, right? So, and it's like air language, like the intellect, like that's the capacity to like distill concepts that are just like way too big for like the human mind and bring it down to earth, right? Through speech, right? And through language.
I love that.
I think if you're talking about the triplicity rulers, I was thinking about this, how it's so interesting how air signs are diurnal, like fire, but with air signs, you sub out the sun from Mercury in terms of triplicity rulership. And I think it's interesting because, the air signs, you have the fall of the sun, you have detriment of the sun, and which is not, a bad thing per se, but it speaks to sort of those qualities we were just talking about are sort of elevated above embodiment and radiance and all those things that we would associate with the sun. And there's a sort of in that sense, I don't want to say objectivity, because air signs can be, they don't have to necessarily be objective, but there's a potential for detachment, especially on like an ego level, in order to engage directly with ideas.
Totally. Yeah, like sort of exactly what Kira was just saying about not having to be down and dirty. Like you can literally just exist in the theoretical, like unmoored from like actual conditions.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is sometimes
Unmoored
not
from
even
conditions.
Yeah, I'm like, this
I
is
love
like
that.
bringing up my issues with dating so many Geminis.
right. The devil's advocate
issues.
proposition,
unmoored.
right? Where it's like it doesn't even, it's like actual conditions are irrelevant. I'm just going to talk about this as if it's a theoretical thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is like being able, like you said, to exist in that space of like, I don't know, what was the word you used, like just being able to exist in a space where you're not really touching down. Like that's something that I've had friends kind of describe some of I've dated a lot of air signs, describe some, like when I'm dating Geminis or Libras or something, how I've had different friends describe different past, relationships and lovers as like, yeah, they just seem to sort of orbit around you or circle around you without ever fully touching down. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like air signs just have this ability to kind of float about and, come in and come out, at their leisure.
It's like hummingbird energy, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much
which
so.
also I learned in, I remember the Trickster book, by the way. It's Trickster Makes the World.
Yeah, I learned about that on the Emerald podcast. I literally have it pulled up on Amazon right now to like send to my Kindle. I'm been really wanting to read that.
It's very good. And of course, like I was reading it during the solar eclipse in Gemini, but then when Mars went into Leo and then Mars entered Virgo, I was like reading James Clear's Atomic Habits and, everything about personal courage. So I didn't get a freaking chance to finish it. So air, but it is very, 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 very good. And I was thinking when you're saying about like air signs orbiting, especially with Mars and Sag right now, about this like notion of what couples counselors call the comfortable distance required for like healthy relationship, because it gives us the space to hear and understand while respectfully disagreeing and maintaining connection.
Oh, like there's enough of the medium for like thoughts to travel through.
Thoughts to travel and for me to understand without agreeing. I mean, it's this novel idea called I hear you and I disagree and I'm connected. God forbid. And that's, I think, what air signs can do, as opposed to us just like leveraging the fact that like, hey, let's prioritize differentiation. You can believe in here and stay and be wherever you want. So can I. And how through differentiation can we maintain connection? And it's not a riddle. It's actually like what couples therapists help people do, So yeah, I feel that I very much appreciate that air energy and sensibility in my relationships. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that just makes me think about the Saturn transit through Aquarius. I've personally, like I have Venus in Libra, and Saturn trining my Venus from Aquarius has been this huge lesson around distance in relationships and how, and how much better it's been making a lot of my relationships to have that sort of distance. And by that, I mean like long distance relationships, like communicating or keeping up a relationship with someone who is across the country or in another country even. And how, I didn't realize how necessary of a piece that is to my relationships to like keep them functioning, to not always be so, I don't know. I was dating a water sign before with like a lot of earth and water, and it was like too much too fast almost. Whereas like the distance with dating air signs long distance has been like, the pace of it has been so much more, it's been so different. So yeah, that's a really interesting point too. Just the literal distance, which makes me think a lot about Saturn and like the opposition aspect,
Mhm.
which is of Saturn, and yeah, how with oppositions you do get that distance, or I think with oppositions you need distance in order to see clearly, and objectively. Yeah, okay, I think we should get into it. I think we should start talking about the different
What have we been doing all
signs.
this whole time? I thought we were getting into it. Was this
We're
a
into
foreplay?
it. Yeah,
We've
let's
been flitting.
Yeah.
Okay, what the fuck's been going on this whole time? No, let's get into it.
Let's get even more into it.
Let's go, baby.
I've been starting with all the cardinal signs for each of these series. And I should say I didn't go through this before, but I've done this for the last 2 episodes. So I just want to kind of backtracking a little bit here. But if you hopefully listen to Earth and Water episodes too, but if you haven't, I just want to quickly explain the conceptual framework of the order of the cosmos, or the order of the spheres, to sort of, kind of explain why I'm ordering the episodes in the way I have. And so essentially the order of the spheres, or the order of the cosmos, speaks to an order of the layers of the universe, you could say. I don't know. I'm not saying that the best way right now. This Mercury talisman's not helping as much as I wish it was, but
I'm
basically,
I was just impressed. Oh, you don't say.
And basically we're looking at this, again, framework where divinity, or God, or heaven, or the ether is everything that exists beyond, the realm of the stars. And that's considered perfect, divine. And then we get into the realm of the stars, the fixed stars, the constellations, as we descend closer and closer to Earth. So after the stars, we get into the realm of the 7 heavenly spheres, the planets, where we go from Saturn to Jupiter to Mars to the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. And then we get into the elemental spheres, those of Earth, the sublunar spheres, and those elements are even ordered and ranked as well based on density. So we have Earth at the center, the densest element, and then water, and then air, and then fire. So I wanted to start with Earth to sort of give us a nice stable foundation, and then water to like nourish us a bit. And now we're at air, pull back a little bit more, viewing things from this, from the cloud, and very objectively and rationally. And then we'll get into our fire signs in the next episode.
Lift off to space.
Yeah, lift off, exactly. So to begin, I want to start with cardinal air, because that's what we do. Cardinal signs begin things, so we might as well start there. And with that, we'll begin with Libra. So Jared, curious about your thoughts around Libra as an air sign, a cardinal air sign.
Yeah, so let's see. Let's think about all of the things that we can say about Libra just to start with, like the building blocks. It's a cardinal sign, it's an air sign, it's ruled by Venus. Saturn has its exaltation in Libra. Have I covered all the basics there?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so.
So I guess you throw all those things together, and you get a lot of the sort of basic statements that you'll hear about Libra. People with Libra placements, Libra suns, etc., like to create or generate harmony, right? That's kind of the main narrative you'll hear about Libra. I think that another piece to Libra is, and this to me is the real cardinal air thing, as opposed to the Venus part, which is really seeing the potential in ideas, and having the impulse to kind of get the ball rolling on various ideas. I mean, ideas is a pretty big topic, so it can mean a lot of things. But I think when you put that together with the Venus part, particularly considering that this is one of the 2 signs ruled by Venus, right? Taurus being the other one. I think in Libra you see a lot of sort of artistic flair. and it tends to, I feel like Libra people tend to lean a little more verbal in the way that they, engage with the arts. You look at a lot of famous Libras, and there's a lot of writers, musicians, singers, etc. But not to reduce it or generalize, but I think it's just kind of a useful starting point to think about that stuff. And as a Libra myself, I can say that I think that there's some merit to the idea that there's a kind of compulsive need for symmetry and balance, oftentimes subjugating the ego in order to create, getting back to that creating harmony. And I think that's why it's also the fall or depression of the sun in traditional astrology, because there's sort of not only an impulse, but a capacity to override the needs of the self, or to set aside the needs of the self for the, I wouldn't say the collective so much as the relationship, right? I think it's more about the Libra person and the person they're engaging with, as opposed to the Libra person and the world, right? Because what it is that the symmetry or balance that a Libra person, or Libra as a free floating idea, is trying to create is more. It's about sort of It's responsive. It's about responding to a situation or moment. As opposed to, we'll get into Aquarius, and I think Aquarius has a different sort of relationship to those things. I'll leave it at that, because I'm sure everybody else has good things to say.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that last sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, Libra for me has so much to do with the arts, and in a way that's slightly different from that of Taurus, Venus's other domicile. Because I think, again, when we go into the air element, it's so much about sharing and connecting. And I find that artistic Libras, which, for the record, I've dated like so many Libras. My Venus being there. I mean, it's just like, I've not even just dated, but I've just been involved with so many Libras, and met all of them in art school. Right. So, yeah, there's
place
just
to find Libras is art school.
Yes, a lot of really cute Libra boys in art school. So yeah, I think a big part of it is this connecting with others through this, through art. Music especially feels especially Libran to me. I think that's a big part of my Venus in Libra, and any sort of Venus transits I have usually correspond with something having to do with music. And usually that's being remembering an old song that I used to be obsessed with, or finding some new music that I'm now newly obsessed with. But yeah, there's just something about connecting through art, the medium of art. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, talking to someone with a bunch of Libra placements right now, and they just sent me a playlist, just cute shit like that is so Libran. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And yeah, Colin or Hawk, do you have anything that kind of pinged in your mind after what Jared said?
I just kind of pinging off of what both of you have said about the art school and sharing between each other with art. How do you share art, right? I feel like Taurus shares art by literally being behold, right? Look at it, right? It's actual, right? Whereas in art school, right, one would learn all of these theoretical frameworks to discuss it, to think about it, varying terms, right, that allow us to bridge that gap between minds. So I feel like it's Venus made theoretical, and that's what aesthetics is, as a field of study and understanding.
And design,
design and aesthetics, exactly.
Libras are master not estheticians, but I'm sure they'd be amazing at that
Probably
too. 'Cause, I
are.
mean, learning about how to do beauty, great, nailing it.
Give me
Yeah.
this extraction. Yeah. And I loved what you
Yeah.
said, Jared, about the responsiveness of Libra. I was like, just a flash of all the Libras that I love. Like, we're
Me
just,
too. Yeah.
oh my God, that is exactly what. And then I was thinking actually about how that's a beautiful cardinal trait, but the expression of that through Libra was, I just thought of my godmother, my mother, and her Libra moon, and all of my Libra friends. They'll look you right in the eye and respond to what you're thinking and feeling and experiencing. And they have just a beautiful way of making you feel known, and just like, how can I meet you where you're at and help you or support you or do whatever I can. And it was just beautiful. I almost got emotional, actually.
Yeah, me too. I actually saw like my Libra bestie in my head, and I was just like, wow, that's really like that thing.
Oh,
Bitches
yeah.
are responsive. Oh my God, I gotta be responsive to the fucking responsiveness now. My God.
Like what you said about it being like the person they're engaging with and not like Libra and the world. Like that's like Aquarius wants to understand the whole system, but like just as you say, like Libra wants to understand like the personal you. Like
And I think
yeah.
that's related to the sort of contrarianness of Libra. And I think all the air signs have a different relationship to being contrarian, and they all have a way of having like a devil's advocate capacity or approach to
so true.
dialogue. But the Libra way, I think, is rooted in that idea that it's like, who am I talking to right now? How do I meet them halfway? How can I be diplomatic? How can I achieve harmony? Sometimes to a fault, sometimes in a way that becomes problematic for the Libra person or for the other person. If it's like being very conflict avoidant, sweeping things under the rug, not saying what you really feel, so not saying what you really mean,
or getting like steamrolled by a more assertive personality,
exactly. Those are not toxic traits, but they are things that not necessarily anyway, but they are things that need to be wrestled with.
That's where the fall of the sun and the detriment of Mars come in, where you don't get that. Yeah, you don't get that direct. I mean, Mars wants to make decisions. I think that's one thing I think about with Mars in detriment, is that it has a way harder time making clear, direct decisions when it's in Venus's signs, because Venus's sign, well, the environment of Libra specifically asks, okay, what's going to be good for you and me? What's the compromise between, what I want and what you want? And Mars would rather not have to consider what you want. It's like what I want.
Pointed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, now I have to juggle both of our needs. Like, what? How about you take care of your own needs and I'll take care of mine? Like, that's what Mars would prefer. But yeah, in Libra, yeah, yeah, and exactly what you were saying. I mean, similarly with the sun is about shining, one's own luminance and being seen in one's own light. And in the environment of Libra, it's not just about you. It just isn't. It's about us. It's about we. And yeah, I think coming from just kind of building off of that, something that I think about a lot with Libra is fairness. And that's where we kind of pull in Saturn's exaltation in Libra around like law and order, which the United States has Saturn in Libra. Natally, we are a land that uses that phrase a lot, law and order. But yeah, just thinking about how Libra is also associated with law, and again, fairness, and what the theoretical idea around like, making laws and rules and regulations that are fair, that are just, that are balanced. And of course, that's not, it's not a perfect system, but that is something that Libra is very concerned about. Like, what is going to be what's the fair and just thing for all involved.
Like if you were the person across from me, like how would I want this to go? And justice is the tarot card of like that is connected to Libra.
Yeah, exactly. And the scales, in the justice card, you'll usually see someone, the blind lady of justice or whatever, with holding the scales, which, yeah, of course, the scales are associated with Libra and yeah, weighing things out.
And I think that really connects or calls, or what am I trying to say? That evokes the qualities of Libra, which are really not remotely wishy-washy and are not subject entirely to people pleasing. They're
So true.
Libra placements use their kind of diplomatic abilities and qualities in order to push into that territory of justice and creating a greater harmony, and sometimes in a very critical way. I mean, if we're speaking about Saturn it can be a very critical planet. And there are a lot of Libras out there who don't exactly match the stereotype of the superficial
Bimbo.
yeah. There's a lot of sort of critical and satirical energy to be found in Libra, and in prominent Libras in the world.
Makes me
think do a quick survey.
It makes me think of Kim Kardashian, who kind of does embodies both sides in a way where she does have like the bimbofication, and I'm not saying that in like a derogatory way at all. Like Venus and Libra here. I'm all for bimbofication. Yeah.
Bimbo rights.
Side.
I love it.
You also have the side of her that's like, studying law and really truly concerned. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't know if she's truly concerned. Maybe it is just for publicity, whatever, but it seems that she is concerned with these injustices that she's been doing work to fight against. Yeah.
And she does absolute drive-bys. Like the clips I see of her on the Kardashians, like to Jared's point about the poignant satirical criticism of Libra, like just absolute assassinations from Kim K.
That is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always interested in sort of pairing. If somebody has the sun in Libra, I always want to know where they have Mercury, because it can only be in 3 places and it's going to tell you a lot. I mean, I want to know the whole chart, right? But it's interesting to think about that there are a few different kinds of Libra suns. There's 3 decans of Libra, or there's other ways to subdivide the sign, and then there's only going to be 3 Mercury placements. And I have the sun in Libra, but I have Mercury in Scorpio, and so I think I definitely lean toward that more sort of edgy side of Libra. I share that with like Eminem. So if you start thinking about the different ways, not only the sign can can manifest in so many ways because you got all the planets going through each sign, but even if we're just talking about sun signs, there's so many different sort of variations, and I think it's important to like remember all the different ways it can come through.
Definitely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up about Libra that we kind of touched on earlier, talking about aesthetics and design, but I just keep coming back to it. I think it was Charles Obert in one of his books on like the 7 classical planets or whatever, or significations of the planets, I forget. But I remember him saying about how Venus, thinking about the order of the spheres and how it goes the sun and then Venus, and how Venus is has this way of like diffusing the light of the sun, the brilliant, beautiful light of the sun. Venus comes in and diffuses it in a way that makes it palatable. I can't say that word. Palpable, palatable, and beautiful, and you think about Venus as this planet that introduces moisture and coolness, and taking that harsh, intense light of the sun and diffusing it in a way that's like, it can, I'm a photographer. I study photography. So thinking about it as like a beauty dish almost, or like a soft box, and yeah, just how with Venus and Libra specifically, just again, the artistic ability, the aesthetic ability of the sign, it's just, that's a big piece of it for me. It's just making Venus or Libra, I think in general, is able to take what might be a little bit harsh or stark and make it I can't say that word, palatable. Is that the word? Palatable for people to digest and to interact with.
And it gives dimensionality too, because that's what like the interplay of light and shadow does, is it like adds, right, like depth of field. And if you think about Libra as the fulcrum of the equinox, right, the place where the sun and Saturn, the most dark planet and the brightest, right, have their fair in equal share. So it's like a place where you can like wield that for art's purposes.
Beautiful.
And in a very vulgar way, I just want to give Libra the prize that there is no shadier sign than Libra. Speaking of blocking out the sun, okay?
Yeah.
Every time a Libra talks about somebody, I'm like, did you just insult them? No. What do you mean? I'm like, hon, you just insulted them, So I just think how Libra casts just a very good shade, And I'm thinking of like this isn't a shade, this is a total drag, but Gore Vidal has said that the United States of America should be named the United States of Amnesia because we just forget our history. So just the ways that Libras just drop those drive-bys, like you said.
Yeah,
I mean,
Kim K, by the way, is a Mercury in Scorpio. I looked it up.
I was hoping you looked it up. Okay,
we're quite dangerous.
All right, so Eminem and Kim Kardashian is how you need to refer to yourself and just announce. Don't you see the resemblance? Come on.
Twitter bio, Eminem and Kim K in one.
I think this is why Sam Reynolds includes Libra in the quote Zodiac Mafia.
That's right. That's right. And he's a Venus and Libra, so he wants to sit at the table. I'm like, you know what, Sam? Come on. I love Sammy.
True. Yeah. I think that wraps. I mean, does anyone have any other not last minute, but does anyone have any other things to share about Libra? I feel like
I've been having a very Libra thought, which is I'm like, have we spent too much time talking about Libra?
Oh my God, right?
Is everyone going to get their fair share?
Everyone going to get their fair? Everyone, as if each of us is like the living embodiment of the sign.
I mean, kind of.
We are.
That's why we're here.
I think we can move on then. Let's move on to fixed air.
Butterfly Libra, yeah.
So our
happy birthday, early birthday, belated birthday.
Yeah, when's your birthday?
The 31st.
Okay.
Okay.
So coming up after way before this airs, but happy almost birthday, Hawk.
Happy almost birthday.
Thank you.
So yeah, Aquarius, our fixed air sign ruled by Saturn. Take it away, Hawk. What do you have to share about Aquarius?
Okay. The contrarian Aquarian, right? Aquarius is in some ways, the whole zodiac, right, is defined by its relationship to the sun. It's literally the path of the sun, the perceived path of the sun. And the sun's domicile is Leo, which is as far as you can possibly get away from Aquarius. So that's where you get this like natural signification of the opposer, which is sometimes in modern astrology described using Uranus, right, as the modern ruler, but traditionally Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So it's not that Aquarius is rebelling against these like Saturnine laws, it's rebelling against the order of the sun, which is like the way that society, everyone manifests, right? It's like looking at it from its vantage point of the farthest away distance and being like, I'm not sure that that's it. Like, and so, yeah, totally. So I think we get concepts like intellectual scaffolding with Aquarius, because it's like Saturn rules structures. And when you run air through Saturn, right, you get like philosophies, right, like full scale, like religious ideology in general, like full scale ways of thinking about reality. Yeah, cosmologies, right? Any of these structural ways of thinking about a thing. I feel like Aquarius talks about that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a big one for me with Aquarius. It's just like I think of systems, but in a different way from like maybe Virgo systems, which are very which a lot more granular and, you know, down to earth. It's about what the pieces of the puzzle that, you know, come together
Yeah, it's
in a
applicable
more
to something.
yeah, more tangible, useful system in that way. Whereas with Aquarius, we're pulling back, we're going wide scale with Saturn. And I always think about, you know, sitting on top of a little cloud and just looking at things from from a bird's eye view when it comes to Aquarius. And yeah, we're looking at social systems with Aquarius. We're looking at, like you said, our intellectual systems or ideologies. But I always come back to social systems and just, and I guess boundaries in general when we're talking about Saturn, but with Aquarius, we're talking about, again, like the boundaries of our social system. So with that, I always picture Aquarius as on the margins of society. And that's where you get the, you know, the outcast archetype with Aquarius. It's not, I don't find Aquarius as necessarily be outcasts. It's just that they exist on margins in a way where they have perspective. They have the perspective of being either pushed up against the edges, like on the outside, or actually on the outside of whatever systems and structures are in place. And so they have a lot of perspective and therefore a lot of ideas around how to fix these structures, how to fix these social structures, because of, again, their perspective from being distant, from being on the margins in that way.
Rebelling against the order of the sun, just to like bring on in the like dark side of Aquarius, like the surveillance state, I feel like is an interesting example of Aquarian mentality, where it's like, okay, the freedom of the individual, right? That's a solar value. It's like, this has to be subjugated for security, right? For safety. Like, we need to be able to listen and watch you. So like using data and information as a way to quote unquote protect, I'm like very vehemently against the surveillance state. It's one of my pet peeves as an Aquarius, right? Ever the contrarian. I'm even like, this specific Aquarius thing is garbage.
That's such a great point though. Wow.
I always bring that up when it's like, oh, the age of Aquarius, it's coming, it's gonna be great. I'm like, it's here, baby. Like,
yeah, it's been here.
Bad news.
Yeah.
We're in it. Welcome.
There's lots of great things about us, right? Obviously, I'm very pro Aquarius, but I think it's really important to just think about the ways that, like, especially with Saturn and Aquarius, right? We're seeing like the macro structure right now, getting to play that out without a lot of breaks on it.
Yeah, especially now that Jupiter's gone. We just have Saturn running into Uranus a couple times, but still overcoming. So Saturn still wins this round.
Yeah. The concept of borders too, which is like a non-real thing, right?
Oh my God.
It's like a deeply theoretical construct, even though we totally think of it as real a lot of the time because we put these things in between us, like checkpoints, etc.
Right.
But it's like, it's fake ultimately. You're overlaying an intellectual scaffolding on what would otherwise be continuous space to create a gap between the two.
Right. Hashtag fuck all borders.
Yep. I love it.
Right,
Jared,
surveillance state, we're dismantling borders, we're making progress.
Exactly. I love it.
Jared or Colin, do you have thoughts about Aquarius you want to share?
A word that's coming up for me when you were saying, you were kind of toying with the idea of outcast. Another word that comes up is outsider. That just was popping off in my brain. And I think that's related to that sense of perspective and being on the margins, is like, you know, because I think one of the most interesting things and most interesting debates in astrology especially between, traditional and modern astrology, and setting aside the rulership question, is the idea of what is the relationship what is the relationship with Aquarius to the collective? Um,
Right.
does Aquarius embody the collective, or does Aquarius stand apart from the collective? Does it rebel against the collective? Because if you look at
Mm.
some sort of popular understandings of Aquarius in like the 20th century, I think they veer toward like an oversimplification of like Aquarians are social and they
Right.
like
Because
they
they're
they think
equating it
about
to
the
the
group, whatever.
element.
Yeah, and there's this whole thing about they're humanitarian, and I think that sort of does a disservice to the extreme individualism of Aquarius people, which is really has more to do with what we were talking about as it being the opposite sign of Leo, of the sun's domain, and thus technically
Mm.
the detriment of the sun. Um,
Mm.
and so there's that to me is what the outsider complex of Aquarius is really about.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Exile is another word that I use. I mean, that's obviously like that's another alternative to like the way that we even say detriment, like the condition of essential dignity is to talk about exile. And I feel like Aquarius is the prototypical exile.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then with
Yeah.
that, I mean, I say all this not to deny the idea that Aquarius has a strong relationship to the collective, because I think that is the other aspect of it being, of Aquarius opposing Leo, is that it is the
Yeah.
elevation of the collective above the individual.
Yeah, just like
Yet
Libra.
any actual Aquarius, any individual Aquarius is going to experience or pursue that in a way which is highly individualized. So
And
it's that axis of individual and collective.
Mm.
unlike Libra, I feel like, so what you said about Libra being like, oh, it's about us, it's about you and me, like the difference between fall and exile, like fall and detriment, is like fall is sort of on the down and outs, but still inside the system, right? So it's like you could compare it to a person who doesn't have like, it's like someone who doesn't have access to like the resources they need, like at a job or something, but they're still like in the job, right? Whereas an Aquarius is like, fuck you, I'm starting my own company, right? Um, like they are fully exiting the space. So it's like we are totally collectivist, but in a way
Mm.
where it's like not this collective though. Like fuck this collective. Like,
Mm.
I mean, right off the bat, right, starting to describe the sign, I was just like, this is the nature of our current collective, the surveillance state, right? The concept of borders. And it's like, I am definitely a collectivist, but it's not that one, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
Leonine order that we
Mm.
currently exist under, where it's like the quote unquote main character order. It gets to be the default norm, right? And like the exile status of Aquarius is conditional. It's defined based on what normativity is. Like if an Aquarius child was born into a punk family, right? The exile status of that Aquarius would be to like be like, I want to wear boat shoes and join the rowing team or like whatever. Um it's not just like, yeah, it's conditional based on the frame. So I always feel like that whole, like my whole thing has always been like, I want to like go buy like a big thing of land and like have all of my friends like come and live on it, right? We'll build like the new, like the compound,
It's the
right?
Aquarius dream. Yeah.
It is the Aquarius dream. We'll have our little exile compound. Like I want a space where we can all be Aquariuses together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's my Saturn in Aquarius. I feel like that's sort of like the Aquarius dream in that perspective too. I relate to that in that way, especially going through my Saturn return and counseling people going through their Saturn returns who share very similar sentiments. Which makes me think again about Saturn and its rulership over Aquarius, and like the word organization keeps coming up for me,
Yeah.
where it's literally like, you know, I get really frustrated about people taking Saturn away from Aquarius, because I'm like, it's literally like about organizing, organizing groups of people, which is so Saturnian, you know, like to create structures for that are inclusive of all people, or inclusive of people. I can say that, inclusive of all people, that are serving all people. I think that's a big part of Aquarius and Aquarian goals, is to, you know, when we talk about like our utopic visions for the future, even, like, I think Aquarius thinks, all right, well, I can see the way that these structures are not working for everyone. I can see, because I have this perspective that only a certain amount of people are actually benefiting from the structures in place.
Right.
And everyone out here on the margins, you know, are not within these walls, are not benefiting. So how can we create new structures or improve these structures so that we can, you know, we can serve more people? That's a big one for me with Aquarius. Colin, do you have thoughts on that or additions to that?
Yeah, I was thinking about the literature on belonging, and like basically how the researchers are pretty much evenly divided around, like, you know, the paradox of belonging insofar as, and we can see this in astrology and like even just the current order of civilization, that we are self-sorted like never before. And we are really ideologically opposed to so many, thinking that we stand for the same thing. But what the research is showing, that it's not that we stand for the same thing, it's that we hate the same people. So it's considered common enemy intimacy, right? And that could be an Aquarian idea around, like, we're self-sorting based on these counterfeit notions of connection, right? And I look at Aquarius as an energy that wants to find belonging with a community, but knows that in order to find belonging with, say, astrology, sometimes we, the four of us, will have to stand alone. And then what? But that poses a big risk, because anthropologically and neurobiologically, we're hardwired for connection. So in the absence of perceived disconnection, our survival system goes online. So this is serious, right? And when I think of Aquarius, I think of an energy that says, okay, I'm happy to be a part of this community, but don't think I'm going to, you know, pretend I'm joining a church and I have to protect the gospel and act like we're all just going to be in this chapel of what this version of astrology says, or this version of politics, or this version of identity, whatever. And I believe that Aquarius knows when it's time to leave and say, you know what, I'm not cool with that. And I'm thinking of the Maya Angelou quote, who I believe was either Jupiter in Aquarius or like, I know Maya had Aquarius somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Do you know what it is?
I feel like
Shakira,
it's Jupiter, but I don't remember.
I think it was Jupiter.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought of the quote when we had the 2 full moon in Aquariuses last summer. But it was like, I belong everywhere and I belong nowhere. That's Aquarius. And we all have experiences of disconnection and not having belonging, right? That's a part of the shared humanity quality of Aquarius as well. But I think that, you know,
It's
then
Mars.
Aquarius question, Mars, okay. But like, above all else, right? With whom do I belong? What does it mean for me to belong to myself? And who supports me standing alone?
Yeah.
So they're tough questions, but I think that's Aquarius.
Yeah, very much so.
Wow.
I love that you brought up the fact that we're in some regards like defined by what we are not.
Oh God, yeah, common enemy intimacy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and we've never been more self-sorted, and we've never been lonelier. Excuse me, go ahead.
No, I even think about that in terms of like Aquarius. I really associate with subcultures, right? For this reason, because it's a culture that is literally defined by its outsider status. Like I even got called out on this in high school. I was supposed to write. This is the most classic exiled sun experience, right? Okay. I was asked to write. We read Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, which, as some of you may know, is like a poem that is just like an ode to selfhood, right? And it's just him describing the solar nature of his spirit. Right here is who I am. And we each had to write one of these. And my exiled son was just like, I can't fucking do this. And I was like, went on a rant to my English teacher about how I thought this was just like the most difficult, impossible, and absurd exercise. And she was just like, what if, like, she just called me right out because I was a big like high school rebel. And she was just like, it would appear that normally you are prone to defining yourself not by what you are, but what you are not, which I thought was just like now that I know astrology, I'm just like, damn, that's my key phrase.
It's so Saturn too. It's so like malefic in that way, where it's like not inclusive.
You're crossing things out to figure out what you are, right? It's like you're making black spots around potential manifestation to like be like, oh, like here's the core of nothing in the middle.
Negation. Yeah.
What was that, Jared?
I said, I'm just thinking about the word negation.
That's a good word.
As a Saturn word. And I loved Colin, I loved what you said about people sorting themselves based on who they disagree with, who they don't like. I think that is the most accurate way to describe the sort of, especially, I mean, I'm thinking about American culture, but the sort of the tribalism that we experience. And that's why it always continues to resort itself, because as the winds shift, you find yourself, hating different people. 20 years from now, I'm like, I'm gonna dislike somebody different, and I think I don't know, I just think that's so interesting. Something else that popped into my mind as we were talking, I like to, I sometimes when we talk about Aquarius, I feel like it's easy to project like an idealized notion of what the principles are of Aquarius as a whole. But in as I was saying earlier, like in any individual, that's going to show up differently. And so sometimes I just like to pop bubbles about Aquarius every once in a while, because for every amazing Aquarius, there's one that people may not like, and one example that I love to think about is, somebody who's currently not considered very cool among young, hip, progressive people would be Mike Bloomberg, former mayor of New York. Who is has the most outrageous Aquarius stellium, and he is such an interesting figure because he's so not Leo. He's like, he barely knows how to get up on a stage and talk. If he does, he's mostly just kind of like, all you people, I don't know about this. And he was entrusted with a lot of power, and I think one of his biggest legacies, which had a kind of global impact, was the smoking ban in New York, which then spread to so many other cities. And I think that's so Aquarius, because it really speaks to this paradox and this question of the rights of the individual versus the rights of the collective, the health of the collective versus the sort of joy of the individual. Can I smoke in an indoor space if other people don't like it and it's a health risk? And how do you make that decision, and what is your priority, And so that was his priority, and that was what he was able to enact. And I agree with that priority. And yet that could play out so differently depending on the situation. And, that was one instance where I feel like he was on some level speaking to both the marginalized person in that situation, who was the non-smoker, but also it was popular because that was the majority of people. Whereas, I think it's not that controversial to say in many or most other regards, he was not primarily thinking about who was marginalized, right? I guess that's what I mean when I say I think there's a danger of projecting morals and ideals onto a sign, and beneficence onto a sign.
That's true. Yeah, the humanitarian piece of that gets thrown to Aquarius a lot. It's a good example of that. Because it's not always, I don't know, but for me, one of my favorite phrases for Aquarius is "I love you, but don't take it personally." Because Aquarius is love. Maybe love is a big word, but I can say that's love people and humanity in general. I think there's a love and also hate and, frustration with humanity. But that doesn't mean that the humanitarian's necessary. I think that it's more that Aquariuses are concerned about what affects collectives, what affects us on a collective scale. And also I could just say like Aquariuses tend to be pretty friendly people, whether or not they appear to be or not. I think Aquariuses truly have a lot of curiosity about people, and just like want to talk to all different types of people and kind of, in a Gemini way of like gaining insight around people. But I feel like Gemini are gathering facts and data, so a little bit more than Aquariuses, which are just like, I think forming these kind of collective ideas and ideologies around, the human condition, and what affects all of us on a more collective scale.
Totally.
And another thing I recognize a lot about Aquarius is love for humanity in a certain way, but also this like undying love for animals. Like there's something about Aquariuses and animals that I've noticed throughout, the past decade of me noticing patterns and shit around signs, that Aquariuses just have this thing for animals. And I think part of it is this feeling of disconnect sometimes with humanity, and almost like this connection to this other species that, I don't know, this doesn't have the same sort of, I guess Pisces has a similar sort of connection to animals, but like doesn't have the same sort of like hangups or difficulties, challenges that humanity faces. And I find that Aquariuses find a lot of like solace in their connection to animals.
I've never thought of that or this, but like I feel like there's like an affinity between Aquarius and animals, because if you look at us in the zodiac, right, which is literally just like a litany of animals, we're like a person, right? And so I think I always say that it's in my notes, right, what you just said, basically Aquarius is human, not humanitarian. So that's like of our nature, right? And there's no distinction. I mean, if you look at me, if you're watching on camera, right, I'm the Aquarius in the room, and I have like 2 animals on screen right now. I opened this podcast with a cat in my lap. I have I have a snake earring. There's like a bull head on my shirt. I think it's just like, we're just like, it's that thing where it's like the exile of the sun. It's like, I'm not special. Like, we're just like, and I've like cried about how much I love people in the same way I've cried about how much I love cats or dogs. I'm just like, we're so fucking cute. Like, look at us all doing our fucking shit. Like, so adorable. Like,
it's so sweet.
I think about it like almost like an anthropologist would, where I'm just like, this is so fucking cute. Like, I can't believe we all just like get together in like people's gardens and like share drinks and stories. Like, that is so fucking cute of us.
It's so, again, it's like that perspective piece too, where you're looking at the whole of humans, the whole of, the animal kingdom. It just
warmed my heart so much, that thought.
Zoom out.
I had to bring it up. And before we move on, we do have to move on soon, but one other thing I wanted to bring up about Aquarius is the internet, again, as this social infrastructure, this piece of social infrastructure that connects all of us, but is also like invisible in a way. It's like, what is the internet, but also very visible. Like, it's just,
and also alienating.
And also alienating, and also connects us and alienates us. Like,
it's non-vital,
just the paradox.
Too. Like, we can be with each other, but in a way that is not solar. There's no like radiating vitality.
Yeah.
Just info.
Yeah, this worldwide web that connects us all in so many really important ways. But like you said, also non-vital, but also vital. Like there's a lot there, but I had to bring it up because the internet is going through its Saturn return, Saturn in Aquarius. And it's come up a lot, the fact that we went into social isolation, Saturn in Aquarius, right when this pandemic started, and which also again aligned with the Saturn return of the internet. And we began to rely on the internet way more than ever before. Not to say that we haven't been relying on it so much in the past 30 years, but like in ways that we, couldn't even have imagined.
That's true.
And I just wanted to bring that up too, the internet as this Aquarian thing.
And because it was 94? What year was it? No, it couldn't have been.
I think it was 93.
93.
And
okay.
there's like, I think that was probably when like the first email was sent or something like that. It's not necessarily like the very beginning of the internet. But yeah, it's kind of the beginning of like the World Wide Web as we know it.
I think it was designed by DARPA too, right? Which is like adjacent to the Department of Defense, which is just like classic Aquarian stuff. Like
it really is.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Do a whole episode on the astrology of DARPA.
No, thank you. We'll leave that one for Chris. Chris can tackle that one. Let's talk about Gemini. Let's get into our mutable air, Gemini. Colin, our Gemini twin, take it away.
That's right. I am a Gemini twin born 2 minutes after my Gemini twin sister Courtney.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I have a Virgo, really close Virgo friend, Virgo stellium, who has a twin sister named Courtney.
Oh, nice. And like Mercury, so we'll take it.
Yeah. Mercurius.
I have met so many Gemini twins. It's like outstanding. Like
my sister's a Gemini who her best friends are Gemini twins.
Gemini twins, Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, Beyonce's twins. I think you said that, Hawk, right?
Yeah, I didn't know Mary Kate and Ashley were Gemini twins.
Oh yeah, and so are Laverne Cox and her twin brother.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
So lots of weird Gemini twin energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to refer to the work of my Virgo comrade here because, man, do I actually worship at the altar of Virgo sometimes. And her name is Emily Russo. She's a phenomenal astrologer and a poet, and she's amazing. And she sat me down and she said, you know that Mercutio from Romeo and Juliet is the Gemini figure, right? And I was like, girl, I did not read that when I was 14, and I'm not going to read it now, And then she just like, she told me the story that she said, just listen, okay? And what she started with by telling me was that Mercutio got the invite, right? And so if I'm understanding the plot correctly, Mercutio was Romeo Montague's best friend, but got the invite to Juliet Capulet's party. So
got him on the list,
right? Because what's the scoop? Gemini knows we're not allegiant to anybody but knowledge, baby. So we zoom in and out, And so she's like, "Come on, you get the scoop." Gemini got the invite. Mercutio got the invite, and then both in the movie and in the story, she told me Mercutio performs for the Capulets, and just at the time that he's performing and joining the Capulets in a sense of connection, that's when they realized that Romeo and his friends got into the party, and then there was going to be a fight, but then the Juliet's father, the Capulet, Sir Capulet or whatever, said, no, let's just have a moment of standstill and peace, because the Mercutio Gemini figure was lifting us from the polarities of either or, this or that. They were in that both end space because Mercutio was present. And that's the beauty of Gemini, where it's like, you guys really aren't fighting. You're actually just misunderstanding. So can we go into the both end rather than the either or, please? Hello, right? And then there was just many other qualities of the Gemini archetype, like the fact that when he died, his famous last words were, a plague on both of your houses. Ooh. And then as soon as the messenger, the messenger who shot the messenger, he was literally killed. And then all hell broke loose because the Gemini figure wasn't there as the go-between.
I love that he did it in both ways.
Say that again.
Way and the negative way.
Right. Boom, boom. And then I just always, when she told me that, a part of me felt a little bit more embodied in the Gemini quality of like, that's true. Yeah, I sort of go here, I go there. I have access to many different places, which is like astounding to me. Like, I don't know how, but I guess that's the Gemini quality. And I'm a student of like dialogic structures and safe conversation practices. So I love to learn how to listen and help people communicate themselves in order to maximize understanding and not always cultivate agreement. Because Gemini is not after agreement. I think that's Libra. Because hello, let's sign on the dotted line, right? But Gemini is just like, well, wait a minute. So you're asking for this? Is that okay with you? Oh no, let's go back over here. They actually asked for that. What do you think? And just, we lost that art because we're always persuading. And I just posted a video about this, that a Gemini international relations scholar, but he started as a mathematician. His name was Anatole Rappaport. He has this amazing line. He says, postpone persuasion. I just love that. Like, just postpone persuasion, everybody. Okay. But the follow-up clause was, until you can successfully articulate another person's point of view to their satisfaction.
Love
That's
that.
Gemini.
Hmm.
That's Gemini. It's like, because I'm not here to win, to lose, to right. I'm wrong. I just want to know, what's the scoop? What's going on? What do you think? Tell me. Right?
Yes.
Like, sit down, gather around, baby. So that's how I experience Gemini. And then in the pursuit of mutual understanding, both and energy, leveraging polarities and turning them into complementarities. And that's true to the story of and it's funny, I'm in a city of twins, right? The mythology of Rome was Romulus and Remus and Castor and Pollux, right? They were fraternal. And I think that that's important to remember, that they weren't identical. So imbued within the Gemini story are this interesting notion of Gemini twins being different, and not seeing contrast as a problem that needs to be solved, but just to leverage that, an energy that needs to be leveraged. And in an attempt to do that, do we really realize that, like, we're expanding our language, and when we expand our language, we expand our world. I think it was Austrian philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein who said that a limited language means a limited world. And you're only as limited as your language. So if we're not asking, naming, normalizing, questioning, getting granular, what are we doing? And if we're not doing that in real time, then really, what the fuck are we doing? You know? And if I didn't learn that during the North Node in Gemini, which is like, I don't want to hear you, dress rehearsing a fight you're going to have, or what you wish you said in the shower. It's like, no, but you speak in real fucking time. The only time you have, very Gemini, And so I don't know. That's how I experienced this. I know I don't want to go on too long on my Gemini soapbox, but I love being a Gemini. I really do. I love that it's provocative. I love that it's disruptive. I love that it really just doesn't give a fuck more often than not. And we're not here to impress or to try to win any accolades. We just want the scoop. So let's talk.
That's like one of my number one phrases for Gemini. Is just like, I just want to know. Like, Geminis, you might think they're nosy, you might think whatever. It's like, they just want to know. It's not it's not to like use information in any way that might be like, maybe for some, I don't know, but generally it's like, they just want to know. They just want to know.
The wonder. Yeah. I think to wonder is a Gemini verb. Yeah. And that's why I think, we're not afraid to ask questions. I know curiosity is a big liability these days. God forbid we look like we don't know, but it's like, I don't fucking care. I'm going to ask, and I think that that's a Gemini quality of just like using the mutable air interaction and letting people know what you're asking and letting them self-disclose. It's just, I love my sign. I really do.
Hell
my sun sign. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, the whole fucking thing.
The comfort that you're describing with not knowing, I think that's a really cool, like, Mercurial
totally
piece.
Yeah, because we don't make it. Oh, go ahead. Excuse me.
No, please take it away.
Yeah, no, we just don't. We don't take it personally. Like, a lot of us don't know, but we're all students and teachers. So let's not get precious about what we think we know or don't know. Let's just fucking ask. Like, I understand, So that's what I love about Gemini too, is they just know how to navigate and ask and get the conversation going and increase understanding, and because they get the invite, and they can just help people maintain connection across contrast. I think we've never been more polarized, anthropologically speaking, like we said earlier. And I think that Gemini energy theoretically can help us regulate that.
And that's Hermes, really, like the ability to shapeshift into be up in the heavens with the gods and consorting with them, but also come down to earth and consort with humans, and then also go down to the underworld and
hang out with you. Hang out with the Scorpio. Girl, what you doing down
hang
here?
Out
Get
with
the
us
fuck out of
here. No, but I read I mean listen to the audiobook of Circe, the book. And it was so good. And the Hermes character, after dating Geminis, it was like, oh my God, this is so spot on. This Hermes character, just the way that Hermes would show up, just like casually just pop up and like fuck basically, and like give her the scoop around like what was going on in like Olympus or whatever. And it just kind of always like popping in, leaving, coming back, like just this really transient vibe to Hermes. And then also again, never sticking, never really like, there's no commitment there, It's very liminal. Exactly. The commitment piece is a hard one, I think. Which, you know,
Takes
it
us
makes
a while.
sense. Yeah.
I
It
will
makes sense
say the
with
quickest way
Gemini.
to a Gemini's heart, though, ask them thoughtful questions, reflect it back to them, and make them feel known. If they feel known
Mhm.
by you,
Gemini is my 7th house, and I'm just like, that feels so relieving in my body when you describe that. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
And not to be this boy who's always bringing the research, but I just posted a video today by Dr. John Gottman, who's been studying, couples laboratory for years. And he puts forward the idea that if you make 50% of your dialogue with your loved ones an open-ended question and give them the space to self-disclose, and then like kind of validate it with what's called the appreciation formula. So it's like, oh, when I see you insert behavior here, I think it speaks to the best of translate that into a personality trait, right? And I just wanted to let you know, it makes me feel, and then you name your emotion. So that the Gemini figure can know it's not just what I do, but it's who I am that you know. You say that, they'll commit so fucking fast your head will spin. You're gonna be like, that was the password? That's all I have to do? But
I
yeah.
think-
Then it becomes an exploratory exercise, the relationship does, right? And you still have freedom to explore and to move around, but just within the container of your relationship.
And we can edit it. Like Esther Perel says, relationships are when you choose a partner, you choose a story. So write well and edit often. And
you know
like
what?
if
she
have an editing
was the
phase.
officiant at my sister's Gemini best friend twin wedding. She was the officiant at their wedding.
Out.
Yeah,
I would have passed out. I love her
know.
because she goes hard for astrology, which I think probably gets her into hot water with like the TEDx viral speakers. Okay. But she don't give a shit. She'll say it. Like, I love this. Come on, let's talk about it. So
Hell yeah.
Leo, she's a Leo.
But what you were saying also just reminded me like of a big Gemini word, which is choice. I think that's a huge thing with Geminis. You need to give them options. Like Geminis just want options. It's okay.
They want to know. They want
They just
options.
want to know options. Yeah. They need more than one, and oftentimes more than two.
Oh, that's weird.
Choices to make or decisions to choose from. Jared, do you have thoughts about Gemini you like to share?
I'm sort of dazzled. I need to, Colin, do you have Mercury in Gemini?
I do.
Yeah, okay.
Retrograde conjunct the sun in the 10th house.
Oh,
okay.
hot.
Well, because I feel like the way that you are demonstrating the sort of fluidity and comfort with information and verbalizing ideas, like just so, and the quickness, of Gemini. that's one of the primary qualities of Gemini, is just fast, fast and adaptable, but also like, always having a quote ready to go.
Oh, forget it.
It's just not everybody can just do that,
Yeah.
That's something that I think needs to be acknowledged, and that is, so there's an aspect of Gemini which I think also is about skill.
I use that
skill and dexterity. Which is a Mercury thing,
And there's two hands, right? You got the double-bodied situation.
Yeah. So there's that aspect of being a quick study, being observant, but I find that Geminis are observant in a way where they don't get bogged down, which is more of a Virgo quality. That's the Virgo side of Mercury. It's like, okay, but I need to keep studying. I need to keep learning. I need to keep trying to do this. Gemini is like, okay, I got enough. I can roll with this.
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm going to take that. I'm going to repurpose it. I'll bring it here, which is also something that I see you doing, right? Is like taking research from one field and sort of adapting it and finding a use for it. So
Like
I don't know.
Trades energy.
Yeah. Which can be
but I try to attribute as often as I can. That's like, I'm always like, this person's I don't want to be the Gemini plagiarizer. The Gemini
I have Mars and Gemini, and I'm like pulling things and citing things and like.
Yes, I put works cited in my Instagram videos because I'm like, bitches, this
Good.
did not come
That's
from
awesome.
me. Yeah, I'm like, go to the original source over here. Thank you. So anyway,
good practice.
yeah.
As for jack of all trades,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to call myself out for my Gemini midheaven, and the jack of all trades thing can the problem side of that is when you just can't like make up your mind, you know. But so like in my case, it's like I can't make up my mind about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
In so many, not just like what am I doing with my life, but then in that subset of my life, what am I doing even in that area of my life? What's my focus? What's my and I think that can be you know, Geminis can get pretty distracted.
Yeah, it's a problem with the speed.
There's a lot of stimulation if you're interested.
Stimulation is a
And
really good
Geminis
word.
are perennially interested.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
That's a great phrase. Gemini is my fourth house, and I wish
Oh,
I don't wish you guys could
Duh.
see, but you can kind of get a sense of like how you can't see the other side of this, which is just like
I've seen
Post-its everywhere. You've seen it. Like calendar, like calendars everywhere, whiteboards everywhere. Like my home space is just filled with information, like all over the walls. And I've always been that way. When I was growing up, I used to have posters covering all walls of my room. You know, I do have a very Gemini home in that way. And I find, yeah, that's just a big part of Gemini. It's just like so much information, just like all the facts, all the details, and this ability to draw connections between info, between facts, between people, places, etc. I find Geminis to be like, you know, the Geminis in your life to be kind of like phone books, you know, like the yellow pages, like human yellow pages. It's just like, oh, you need someone that does this, I can find someone. I can get into my Rolodex, pull up my little black book, you know. That's something I love about Geminis, and especially Mercury and Gemini. I've just been so drawn to that placement, I think because of my my Mercury and Sagittarius. Just such a good combination of Mercury placements. And yeah, I think, what else did I want to say about Gemini that like, I mean, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the twin aspects more, because I like what you said about the fact that they're fraternal twins, like in mythology, and how we do have this both neither sort of thing with Geminis.
Right. Yes.
And
the unity of opposites.
The unity of opposites. That's a great and
as the introduction of humanity.
Yeah, totally.
Like human beings appear, number one, and they appear in partnership. Oh, hello. Again, we're neurobiologically hardwired for connection. In the absence of connection, there's always cardiovascular, cognitive decline, the lover's card. And they're different. Go ahead.
Exactly what you were saying was Castor and Pollux, right, are two different twins. And like one of them lives and one of them dies, right? Like one of them gets to persist in the realm of life eternally, and one of them is eternally dead, right? And that is like the interplay of life and death. It's like the most like basic binary that exists. Like, are you or are you not?
Yeah.
And then they reunite in a beautiful way, theoretically, if that's what the Gemini constellation is. Like, as if that we can kind of do the connection, disconnection, and reunion. Thus, we have the Gemini story reach to its highest level.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand about Geminis. It's not like the whole two-faced shit. Yeah. It's like, no, you have to Gemini. People just love to hate Geminis. Yeah. But it's really about this, like you said, like reconciliation of opposites, or not reconciliation, and just acceptance.
Leveraging, just leaving it fucking be. Like, mind your business.
Yeah.
What's it got to do to you? What's it got to do with you half the time?
Like, we don't have to become one person. We can still be two people.
Yeah.
Hello. I know. And that's the Gemini twin quality. And like, I live this every day. My twin sister is a skeptic. She's like, I don't know about all this. But what I fucking know is that it works for you. So God bless. I don't care. But she's always like, I don't even know about this. And I experience that every day. She has curiosity, and she's always asking. But I almost like to that, like, I'm not her astrologer, I'm her twin brother, so I don't even have to go into astrology with her.
Totally.
But I experience
Yeah.
that every day. Yeah.
She doesn't rule it out, right? So it's not like
No.
taking away the avenue for curiosity and for exploration that like allows it to continue to have vitality and exist.
And I think she's got that Gemini quality of like, well, damn, I don't really give a shit what you believe in. I just want to know, does it work for you? And you know what? I think it does. I can't say this doesn't work for my brother. He's got the results. Whereas if you said it did and your relationship sucked and you were like just not really the most well-adjusted human being, we'd have to have a different conversation about that. But she's like, hey, look, you can't take the results away from my brother. So I don't give a fuck how he got there. I really don't.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Big Gemini energy.
Yeah. Anything else about Gemini you want to share? I guess one thing I just want to say, and we talk about this with Mercury a lot, is just like the existence beyond binaries, basically,
Right.
which is basically this whole
Right.
conversation we've been having,
Right.
is that Mercury in that Gemini is able to exist, you could say, in between binaries or just outside of them in general, which I think is such a beautiful aspect of Gemini that I love a lot. Is you get just a lot of open-mindedness and curiosity, like just the ability to like hold two things, hold things that seem like opposites and find maybe the connection between them, even if it doesn't exist in any sort of physical, tangible form.
Right. Well, I guess my parting point would actually just be a question for you. Is I'd love to know where you think people are at on a scale of 0 to 100%. Can any of you guess what an average person's listening accuracy is?
Really low.
Yeah.
Give me a number, 0 to 100.
I was like, what did you say? 0 to 100? Like,
yeah, right.
I'm going to say 42%.
I was going to say,
Kira.
I want to say 60, but I feel like it's going to be lower.
60. Okay.
I was going to say, I'm going to go for 33.
33. Okay. So this is the qualitative analysis of the Safe Conversations Institute by Dr. Harville Hendricks and Dr. Helen LaKelly Hunt. And it is actually 13%.
Is that per word or for content in general?
I don't know that like the field, but I believe it's like full comprehension of a conversation. We distort 87% of the language we hear.
Oh my God, what a nightmare.
And so I think the Gemini quality is all right. So, well, damn, we got a mirror.
Like between that and witness testimony unreliability, it's just like we literally just live in an illusion constantly.
Delusion, self-deception, conspiracy, inaccuracy. I know. So the Gemini is like, okay, where did you see that? Are you sure? What did you say? Did I observe that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be my parting word, is to just make sure that when you hear something and you're emotionally activated by it, or you're feeling a particular way, you go into the mirroring phase when you just say, oh, let me make sure I got that right? Articulate another person's point of view of their satisfaction. See if you can summarize what a speaker just said and try to elevate exactly your accuracy so that you're not getting emotionally activated on some shit you didn't even fucking hear. And that you're also connecting with, and how often do we do it? So that's why whereas let's talk to people to make sure that what I just heard was what you said, and then we are getting that Gemini messenger quality.
Go from there.
Well.
Yeah. That's a great note to end on with Gemini. I guess so. I want to kind of close out by just say, like, seeing if you guys have sort of a message for the world from air signs. Is there something that you wish, whether it's like, you see a lot of stereotypes online, like what do you want the world to know about air signs, or your sign even in particular? Jared, you can go first.
Oh no.
Cardinal.
Yeah. I think that Libra is the most reluctant of the cardinal signs. It's like, I guess I'll go first, but I wish I could go second. I really like bouncing off people. I guess I would just, this will have to be a riff because I don't have a prepared statement, but I think that there's something to be said, and I think this has come up with the discussion of each sign individually. There's something to be said for the relationship of air signs in general to duality. And, I think that each air sign has a different way of sort of navigating duality, but not like non-air signs can't. That's not what I'm saying. But
Right.
it is, I think, really central to the meaning of the air signs. And each in kind of a different way. Like if I can quickly try to figure out what that would be, I would, Libra is about bridging duality, Gemini is about traversing and embodying two things at once, more or less. And Aquarius, I think, is sometimes about it's about perceiving the unseen, and holding the unseen, that everybody else is not noticing. Everybody else doesn't necessarily perceive the duality that exists, and Aquarius needs to bring it to light, which sometimes by taking a side in a really strong way, which is, I think, the fixed nature of Aquarius. So it's sort of, I think of Aquarius as kind of like the one air sign that is most likely to actually pick a side. But that's often changing, because once everybody starts agreeing with them, they'll probably switch sides. So I think that would be my sort of big picture take on air signs that I have thought about for many years and never exactly articulated.
Well, thanks for sharing it here.
Yeah.
Hawk, how about you? A message to the world from air signs.
I think that my general message is for both from air signs, but really like to air signs, if that's okay.
Yeah,
which is that you're doing a great job being yourself. I feel like air signs are characterized as like, because it's the intellect, as sort of, even though what I said at the beginning is the inverse of this, as more like unreal for some reason. We get characterized as unfeeling and like sort of like ungrounded, as if that there's like something more core to thought than what actually like than thought, and that we're not able to manifest or generate somehow. And I think that I just like thought is like thinking about things changes them. Like what Colin just said, that like 13%, if I heard that right, comprehension. Like if you change the mental cognitive apparatus that is filtering, receiving, and expressing information, like it literally changes everything. It's a seed point. Yeah. And obviously fall of the sun, exile of the sun, Mercury's sign, airy domicile, right? So there's a lot of movement. Yeah, it's okay to not be a solar self the way that Leo is or Aries is. Like it's okay to be like conditional and like fast.
Hell yeah, I love that. Thanks for that.
Yeah, just message from your Aquarius friend.
Colin.
Yeah, real fast. The limits of our language define the limits of our world. So expand your language, expand your world, baby.
Amazing. Awesome. This was so great. We're just going to close out by letting these fine people know where they can find more about you, hear more about you, learn more about you.
Find here, learn more.
All the things.
I'm at QueerCosmos, and thank you, Kira, for having us here. This was such a joy to be in your space and have you feel the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, QueerCosmos. And what do you do? Do you do readings still? Or?
Yes. On a European time zone. So God bless. If we can figure it out, we'll do it. Otherwise, I'm back in America in the spring and we can talk then.
Oh my gosh. Okay, awesome. Jared, how about you?
Yeah, on social media, I'm or at least on Twitter, I'm at Mercurius George, and that is Curious is not spelled correctly. It's kind of Latinized, so MERCURIUS. And then mercuriusgeorge.com is my website. I should probably have readings up and running by the time this episode airs, so I would love to do a consultation for you. And I'm kind of just doing one basic consultation for birth chart, transits, etc. Whatever you want to do. That's what I would like to do.
So Libra. Awesome. And Hawk.
I am Hawk Astrology on Twitter and Instagram. I do a lot of teaching in my Instagram stories and just like spend a lot of time talking on both those platforms. I do consultations. If you're trying to get into magic or like anything like that, definitely come talk to me. I'm currently booking for March, and you can find that through the link in my bio on either of those platforms.
Awesome. And we will have links in the show notes too.
Thank you, Kira.
Yay,
Thank you,
we
Kira.
did it. Thank you guys. This is
Thank
awesome.
you, Colin and Jared, for being such awesome air sign teammates.
Oh yeah, Hawk and Jared. It was so cool
Great.
to be in the airspace. I love it. I'm literally on a cloud. I'm very happy.
Yay.
Great.
Yay.
Same.